Well, good morning. Thank y'all for being here on a Monday morning. We'll call to order the Subcommittee Appropriations on Economic Development, and we'll start with a word of prayer from Chairman Bonner. Chairman Bonner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you would, let's bow. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for today. We thank you for this time together to discuss these important issues. Lord, we just pray that all that we do and say brings honor and glory to you. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. We're going to start with Commissioner Tyler Harper this morning, who is zooming in as he is moving around, attending meetings, I presume, in the state, but you never know. But Commissioner Harper, are you on?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, I'm here.
All right. Good morning, sir.
Thanks
for taking a few moments this morning. We'll turn it over to you.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you for the flexibility. I appreciate it. I'm actually we have a meeting on the Rural Center today that we've had scheduled for quite some time. So I'm actually meeting with the staff and the board. So I know that's one of the things y'all wanted to talk about, but that's actually where I am today. So I appreciate the flexibility and the ability to join via Zoom. When it comes to the department, there've been I think a couple of things that was sent over to our staff on some things I think the committee specifically related to going on at the department. I'm getting some feedback on my end, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if that's because it's picking up on the microphones on your end or what it may be. I'm just making sure you're not, I can handle the feedback. I'm just making sure I'm not feeding back on your end. Anyway, I'll continue. In regards to the Rural Center, just to kind of give the committee an update on where that is. It is integration over to the department's been very smooth. The staff, as you know, we have office locations in both Tifton and a North Georgia location in LJ. We are maintaining that space in LJ, but the staff in Tifton will be moving to space that we are making available at the lab in Tifton. So they'll be moving from the ABAC campus over to Department of Ag facilities at our laboratory space here in Tifton that we've been able to make space and room for them. And that will happen at the beginning of the year. And so effective basically in January, there'll be a full separation and inclusion under the Department of Agriculture from the university system. We did have an agreement with ABAC through the end of the year on the employees that were under their purview at the time, and so that agreement runs through December 31st, and that's how those employees continue to be paid. And so we've been able to work this out. We've got, like I said, agreements are in place starting January 1. All the employees will officially become employees of the Department of Agriculture, and we'll be housing them in Department of Ag facilities while maintaining the facility in LJ. I think all of y'all are familiar with the work of the Rural Center and the purpose of it. There have been a lot of collaboration between the department and the Rural Center over the last couple of years. Anyway, especially as we work to tell the story of agriculture and what some of the things that we do there in the expo. But adding it to the department is giving us another tool in our toolbox to ensure rural Georgia continues to be successful. With agriculture being the largest industry in rural communities, it is imperative that those communities are able to thrive, and that's the role of the Rural Center to ensure that success. Our goal is to maximize the impact we have with the funding that we have. There's we get the Rural Center receives, as y'all know, state funding. And it's not significant enough funding where you can go out and do significant projects, but it's enough funding to be able to help rural communities maybe lay the groundwork and the foundation for those projects that they want to look at doing, and ensure that we're able to give them the information and the tools to do just that. So we're going to work to maximize that impact, to focus on agribusinesses, rural healthcare, education, economic development, community development in those parts of the state. Our center team has been involved with the governor's forestry task force as well, and we're working towards solutions to help address those issues with our pulp and paper mills. Many of you familiar with especially the lumber mill that was closed in Augusta this past week, or the announced closure, which brings the total to 4 over the last couple of months in our state. So we've been heavily involved in those conversations, and working to ensure that we're helping those counties that are, especially the ones that are in the most need. Our staff over the last couple of weeks has made specific contacts in 20 of our most rural counties across the state here at the Rural Center. And we're working on, because of those visits, we've already added 3 new projects in communities that have been heavily impacted by the mill closures, which would include Early County, which was home of the GP mill. So that's a brief update on the Rural Center, Mr. Chairman. I'll be happy to, unless there's any questions, I'll just dive off into what we got going on at the department. All right. I know you're all familiar with the hemp program. Just to kind of give you a quick update on that. There's 7,200 licensed hemp entities in our state, between growers, processors, manufacturers, wholesalers, and retailers. Obviously, the largest lion's share of that is retailers, with almost a little over 6,900. We still have 55 grower licensed. 13 of those growers are active, 5 processors, 13 manufacturers, and 190 wholesalers. As of last week, we had done almost 1,200 inspections for wholesale and retail locations. We've done 13 inspections for all 13 growers. Right now, currently, we have a little over 16,000 square feet of indoor growing of hemp, 8 acres outdoor, and harvested a little over 4,900 square feet. Harvest is ongoing, and reports are being filed with our office as that continues. We have issued, since our division really at the beginning of the year has really dove off into this, so for about 11 months, a little over 900 cease and desist notifications and notice of violations letters issued to entities across the state. We have done 31 criminal investigations on hemp entities, and we have 3 pending administrative cases with our legal division in hemp. Just as a note, there are almost 1,000 pending applications for a hemp license. Unfortunately, most of those, actually all of those, did not finish or complete their paperwork nor submit the proper payment to be issued a license. So those will be put on hold until we get further information or we receive payment for their license. With your help, we added a couple of new positions. 2 inspectors. We're waiting on a 3rd one to on board. These new inspectors, one of these new inspectors is actually a biologist, used to work with USDA and has a wealth of knowledge on cannabinoids, testing procedures. And we have another license coordinator that will be coming on board by the 1st of December. So we're moving along in the right direction. As far as revenue from hemp, actual revenue for fiscal year 25 ended at a little over 1.75 million. Right now, if our projections hold for fiscal year 26, we are estimating a total revenue of 1.883 million for the hemp program. To put that in perspective, we receive, with your help this past session, y'all added about 490 to our budget. So we receive about 1.06 million in funding for the hemp program. So we're bringing in a little over estimated to bring in over 880,000 more than we're actually funded for on the program. Obviously, always a return on the investment, but any of that funding that we can get back, Mr. Chairman, will help us continue to do more of the job that we've been doing. far as high path avian influenza, all of you are familiar with this. Has been something that we are highly involved in and have been involved in. Over the last couple of years, we've dealt with 8 different cases, 4 backyard cases and 4 commercial cases. The Gordon County case that we're working to wrap up now is as I said, our 8th detection since the start of the outbreak in February of 2022. In Georgia, we've only had about 345,000 birds impacted by HPAI. When you compare that to 182 million nationwide. And when you look at commercial flocks, we've only seen really 3 commercial poultry flocks. We had 1 commercial duck flock that was impacted by HPAI, so that would bring it to the 4 cases. And so when you compare that to the total number impacted of a little over 1,800 flocks across the country, and only 4 of those have been in Georgia, I think that bodes well for a lot of the work that we're doing to protect us from that. It's an ongoing issue across the country. Obviously, we're watching our dairy herds as well, because there have been confirmed HPAI cases in dairy. So far, none of those have been in Georgia. But we're continuing to monitor that every single day to ensure that we're staying on top of that. We've been participating in the National Milk Testing Strategy that has been overseen on the federal level, and we're working to ensure that we're keeping an eye on that every single day. As I said, we believe it's our biosecurity measures that we have implemented, as well as our uptick in our emergency management capability as an agency. And we're working every single day to ensure that that particular entity and that particular work is successful because of the work that they do. I know this past session, y'all helped us with an emergency management specialist. We have interviewed for that position, and a candidate has been chosen. That individual will start on December 1st. That particular person will help us continually in our emergency management efforts by working to develop and continually update our emergency operations plan for HPAI, assist with our emergency operations center and staffing that during incidents, and coordinate with federal, state, and local entities on the protocol on all of this. And obviously continue to help us build out our training for HPAI, among other emergencies that we encounter every single day. As you know, these responses require weeks of extended activations, especially HPAI of our Emergency Operations Center, and place demands on our personnel and our resources. This addition to our team is going to help tremendously, but as time goes on, for us to sustain effectiveness and our operational capability, further conversation about increasing staffing levels in our emergency division is going to be critical to ensure that we're not fatiguing our team. We can maintain high levels of coordination during prolonged emergency operations, and those are some things we would like to talk about as we move forward. As far as I'm going to get into federal funding in just a minute. Just an update on farmland conservation. The council's met several times. We've approved the rules. The rules have been published. We published them at the end of September. We have been working on draft applications and proposed application schedule, which we hope to open in December or January. The December council meeting will approve that application. But everything is moving along in that, and we hope to open up applications very soon to start protecting farmland in the great state of Georgia. On the electric vehicle program, as you know, we did not receive any money for the electrical vehicle program in fiscal year 26. However, we have continued a very restrictive pilot program internally. And although no funding was appropriated to continue a lot of those conversations, we've continued our discussions with Georgia Tech, and we've been in contact with those in the industry on how we can best move forward to implement this new and emerging program in this industry. Related to Hurricane Helene, we have used up the entirety of the $150 million allocation for low interest loans for farmers. Matter of fact, the Georgia Development Authority, we added 20 million to that pot to bring it to a total of 170. As of the end of October, we had closed 476 loans for almost 162 million, or a little over 161 million in funding. On the 135 million for the forestry grants, I believe Director Sabo may go more into this. But we have issued payment of 224 grants for a little over 5 million. Of that, we have been working directly with the Georgia Forestry Commission on that program to ensure that it goes to the appropriate places and the funding is dispersed as quickly as possible. Regarding our budget, Mr. Chairman, I know there's been some question about federal funding. I will tell you, we actually were receiving funding cuts under the previous administration. Matter of fact, we received a little over $1 million in funding cuts in totality under the Biden administration that have carried over. And about 630,000 of that was our meat inspection program. About 494,000 of that was in our food safety programs, bringing that to about 1.12 million in federal funding reductions that we have seen as an agency. Obviously, those are critical areas. We have been working internally to make adjustments appropriately to offset some of those. However, not all of that can be completely offset, and so we're having to cover those with other state dollars, which is putting a significant strain on our budget. So, you know, anytime you have the conversation around meat inspection, it's one of those things that I think is critical because when you look at that, in the last eight months, we've declined 22 licenses for meat processing facilities due to understaffing. Since I've walked in the door, we've declined a little over 30 inspection facilities since 2023. These are losses for jobs, rural economic development, our state tax base at the end of the day. Those are things that we don't like to talk about, but unfortunately, due to our staffing levels, are unable to cover. Since I've walked in the door, we've seen an increase of over 33% in licensed entities at the department, of over 88,000 licenses. Now, in that same time period, we've increased our FTE by about 60. But when you look at a 33% increase in licensed entities and about a 12% increase in employment, those numbers don't necessarily equate. But even before the 33% increase, we were already short-staffed to oversee the number of entities that we were expected to work towards. So as you can imagine, continued increase in our staffing levels and working to ensure that we have the people to do the job effectively and efficiently is critical every single day. And that doesn't take into account the things that pop up, like the yellow-legged hornet that we are fighting every single day, that we're having to work to address, that we don't have particular positions for, the cotton jasset, the spotted lanternfly. You know, those are things that we as an agency are responsible to oversee, that we don't necessarily get funding to do once those instances take place, because when we pull staff off of current jobs and put them on those particular missions, it takes away from the underlying job that those particular individuals were working to do. And even when you think about the emerging citrus industry, we don't have dedicated staff to citrus at the Department of Agriculture either. And if you look at just increases in complaints as well, you know, some of our division are seeing almost 50% increases in complaints over the last 2 years. We've saw significant increases in violations in some of these divisions, almost 30% in our meat inspection division, which is a perfect example of why it's critical that we fund those areas and ensure that those individuals have the ability to do their job. And a lot of those resources come out of our operational expenses that we don't necessarily get increased funding for over the last couple of years. Matter of fact, this past session, unfortunately, we got a $150,000 cut in operational expenses at a time when we did not need a particular cut in those expenses, because we are using some of those dollars, unfortunately, offset the expenses that we've seen from the issues that we've had. Another thing, and we can get into details later, Mr. Chairman, but I've got a new CFO now, and I've had that since January of this year. She has done a great job of digging into the problems we have at the department from a finance side and making sure that we get our house squared up. And we have found that just even on the state pay raises that y'all have helped us with over the last couple of years, whenever we look at our FTE versus the FTE utilized for those, we have found that we're about $1.3 million short in fully funding the state pay raises. And about 500,000 of that is the federal funding piece that we have yet to be reimbursed by the feds. So we're having to cover $500,000 of the pay raise through state dollars that we have not been appropriated. And then a little over another 800,000 in funding on the state side that we're having to cover for employees that where we were given a shortfall in fully funding those pay raises for our team at the department. And so there's a lot that we can talk about. I know I've talked about a lot, Mr. Chairman. I know this next session we're going to be committed and focused on. Our focus is going to be addressing those shortfalls in where we have seen the shortfall in our salaries, the shortfall and some of the federal funding, the operational needs that we have as an agency to ensure that we're shoring up our job and what we do every single day and have the resources to do it. Obviously we're going to be looking at the bond package from the lab in Atlanta. Y'all funded the planning part of that. We're looking for the construction funding for that this next session. Also vehicles, Mr. Chairman, I know you hear me talk about that all the time. When I walked in the door, we had a $5 million backlog on vehicles. We've been working to address that. We've only been funded one time by the General Assembly for vehicles, almost $2.5 million. Last year, I believe it was. But we have every agency has that 10% or so turnover every year. For us, that's almost $1.5 million a year in vehicle funds yearly on vehicle turnover that we have. So we have we have close to 80 vehicles right now that that are over that replacement mark. And so that would catch us up. But I constantly talk about needing a yearly budget line item for vehicles, no different than every other state agency, Department of Public Safety, Natural Resources, you name it. And then we're specifically asking for some software upgrades and licensing system upgrades and funding on some programmatic areas that we are required to fund every couple of years. And so those specific dollars, we can get you those specific numbers later, but just kind of hitting the high points. That was what I understood y'all wanted to hear about, Mr. Chairman. I hope that gives you a good overview. I know I went through that very fast. We could sit down at a longer detail and really go through this in more detail at another point. But then we got a lot going on at the department. I didn't hit on everything that we're doing. I didn't hit on everything that we could talk about budgetarily, but I hope that gives you a good overview of where we're at, what we got going on, what we're doing, and the work that our over 570 employees do every single day to ensure that the number one industry is successful, and that our rural communities are successful, and our consumers have safe food that they can eat and can rest assured in the gas they buy, among other things.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you for the great work you're doing on behalf of Georgia agriculture, Georgia farmers, and Georgia consumers. Any questions from members of the committee? Commissioner, if I might, if you have a moment and can briefly describe for the committee so that there is a better understanding of the relationship between federal and state government when it comes to inspection programs such as food safety and meat inspection, understanding that there have been 22 processing licenses, I guess, denied because of the lack of staffing. What does that look like in terms of the need for staffing as we move forward? and that relationship that you have there with the feds in terms of what the federal government pays for and what the state pays for some of these shared employees?
Well, on the federal piece, there's a couple of things that go with this. So it depends on if you're a facility that you're only going to sell product in the state of Georgia, you only have to have a Georgia license to do so. However, if you want to sell across state lines and or international, you have to have a USDA stamp. So there's a Georgia stamp, a USDA stamp, basically. And for you to go, like I said, go across the state lines, you have to be USDA certified. So in Georgia, our meat inspection program and our food safety program, we are equal to or better than. In other words, we are audited and oversaw by USDA and FDA in ensuring that our team meets at least the federal standard or is better than the federal standard. And by doing so, our team can stamp product for federal interstate shipment and or international shipment. Because of that agreement that we have with the feds, when it comes to those plants that are specifically only going to do those interstate, they're not staying in state. We get 50% funding from USDA for meat inspection, and our food safety program on some of those, depending on the area, produce, et cetera, we get up to 20% funding for some of those. And even on the pesticide side and our structural pest team, we get some federal funding for those positions as well. So when it comes to the facilities that we turned in on the meat inspection side, they could go to USDA, but if they're not going to be shipping out of the state of Georgia, it's going to cost them more money as a business to be USDA certified when they're never planning to go outside of the state of Georgia. However, if they are going to go outside of the state of Georgia, they can still go to USDA and apply to get a license. And then USDA will make that determination on their funding staff levels. That's one of the things I'm not sure, Mr. Chairman, how many of those entities actually may have a federal license. I know that they just didn't get a state license. And that's something that we can work to verify. But there is a relationship between us and the feds. And anytime that we get a funding pay raise for employees, the state covers the 50% of that salary for those individuals, but does not cover the other 50%. We as an agency are expected to go to the feds and request for reimbursement for those. However, as you can imagine, as an agency head, I'm going to do everything in my power to ensure that those employees receive an equitable pay raise. It's not fair for two employees that may be working in the same facility or maybe working in the same job to not receive the same pay raise. So we work to address those within our budget, even which cuts into our operational expenses as an agency. And in my 3 years, almost 3 years being here, we've yet to get an increase in our federal reimbursement to cover those pay raises. And we've been asking constantly for that, having conversations with USDA constantly about that. Matter of fact, I've had that conversation with the secretary. And so it does cut into our budget operationally when it comes to those particular areas. But there's a lot of things that we do in partnership with the feds on food inspection, meat inspection. It's all done through agreements between our agency and the federal agencies. But I think at the end of the day, I think most of our businesses would like to have Georgia employees and Georgia state officials working with them and partnering with them. And I think that's part of that partnership with the feds is for us to do just that. And we work to make that happen every day.
Thank you, Commissioner. And one last thing, as you had updated us on the funds related to Hurricane Helene that the state has done. I know you've worked with USDA on a block grant that will come to the state for you to administer. Can you briefly update us on that?
Yeah, I meant to do that, Mr. Chairman, and I apologize for that. Briefly on the block grant, as you can imagine, I think they finally reached a deal last night on getting the government open back up. So hopefully that will be squared away today and we can go back to having conversations. But the 40 days the government's been shut down, we have not been able to have any agreements with US or any conversations with USDA about our block grant. Right before the government shut down, about 2 weeks before, we announced that we had reached an agreement on the funding coming to Georgia. At that point, it was shifting the focus to finalizing the formulas on how that funding was to be dispersed amongst the different areas. Then the federal government shut down, but all of that is done. As soon as USDA says, hey, we're back operational, we are going to submit our formulas to USDA for sign off. As soon as they sign those off, we will be able to open the application period immediately thereafter. We already have brought on additional staff to handle the application process. And we're working already the back line, so to speak. Even though the federal government's been shut down, we've been building out that back line and that application. So all of that is ready to go as soon as the federal government open back up, so we can get that done as quickly as possible. So as soon as they give us the green light, we'll be sending them our formulas. As soon as they sign those off, we'll be open the application period. We hope that happens here in the next couple of weeks.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. Any questions come to mind during that conversation? All right, Commissioner. Well, thank you, and thanks for what you're doing there with the Rural Center for Center for Rural Prosperity. We know that's going to be a tremendous asset to rural Georgia as we move forward and trying to address the many issues facing Georgians. But with that, Commissioner, thank you. Thanks for being with us today remotely, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Sorry again, I couldn't be there. Appreciate your understanding, and we'll look forward to seeing y'all soon. Appreciate you.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. All right. Moving on, Mr. Stephen Shemp, Georgia Expo Authority. So I don't know how you did that. Thank you.
Lori Dowd is our CFO. She puts together these numbers, so I'm going to let her present, and I'll be available for any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank y'all for being here today.
Morning. We ready? Okay. All right. First of all, thank you for having us this morning. Thank you for taking a few minutes to hear our request. As you know, we exist to promote the agricultural achievements of Georgia's young people, and as well as provide a center for diverse activities to benefit the state's economy. We stage and promote an annual fair that is, that annual fair provides about 56% of our operational budget for the year, and we fund about 94 total percent of our operations. Just a couple of fun facts about the fair we just had. It was a record year, over 612,000 people. A couple of fun things there. We had a lot of corn dogs, a lot of corn, a lot of pork belly sold, a lot of people, a lot of students. It was a really good fair, great, beautiful weather. We really couldn't have asked for better. We are still writing checks for the fair. Right now, just preliminary numbers, our revenue was up 8% over last year. And right now our expenses are up 10%. So we're still ironing out some things and hope to have some numbers in the next few weeks for the finals. Over that 11 days, we generate about $1.5 million of tax revenue just from the fair. That includes the vendors, concessionaires, admission tickets, and all that. So it was a really good fair this year, and looking forward to seeing how we ended up. Moving on to some active projects, some funds that we received in prior fiscal years. In FY 2020, GAE 21, $1.7 million. We have about $25,000 left on that. And we've got that earmarked to work on some facility restrooms and all. We've been doing a lot over the last few years with the money that's been provided to update the facility, some painting, some facelifts, like just getting a lot of things. The whole facility looks, if you haven't been, it's looking really good. Things are looking really nice down there. GAE 24, we received in fiscal year 22 amended budget, cash of 9.1 million. We've done a lot of roof repairs there, a CCTV security system, which really benefited us during the fair. We had a suspicious person on the grounds that came multiple times a day, every day. And we were able to watch this individual come and go multiple times a day out there and keep our eyes on him. So that really paid off during the fair. We've done some upgrades to RV sites, some fire system upgrades. Some of that was really outdated in a lot of our buildings. So just a lot of work's been done to bring the facility up to current year standards. The remainder of that money on GAE 24 is about $519,000. And we've got that earmarked for more roof repairs, Miller Murphy Howard building upgrades. As you may be aware, the hotel that's connected to Miller Murphy Howard is set to open February. I think they're taking reservations now for February. So we're really looking forward to that, looking forward to generating some more commercial business related to that hotel opening. So we're trying to do a few more upgrades to Miller Murphy Howard to make it attractive with that hotel combination there. We did buy a little bit of equipment with that, a skid steer, vacuum trailer, one tractor, a few things like that. So like I said, I think these two should be spent by the end of this fiscal year. We're on track to finish that by this fiscal year. Coming in February 2027, we're very excited. We got a new barn and an arena to promote the youth livestock exhibitors in the state. I think that is a $21 million project. 460,000 of that in there is for major repairs and renovations and an RV expansion. But of course, the majority of that is for the barn and arena. Our fiscal year 26 one-time appropriation, we were given $1.14 million. And that was designated for 3 specific buildings, HVAC and boiler in those buildings. That Reeves admin, the admin boiler, and Heritage Hall. If you're familiar with our facility, the Reeves Arena has our administrative offices on the front. All that's kind of on one system, and it just is not efficient. So we're trying to split the admin offices separate from the arena. We're working on that. We've got purchase orders in process for the Reeves admin HVAC and the Heritage Hall HVAC. We'll work on the Reeves admin boiler after the HVAC's complete, and we know what all needs to be done, getting that split. Thank you. Thank you for the $900,000 we do receive annually. That does fund us. That provides about 6% annually of our operational budget. And that helps to offset the $2.6 million that it costs us to host the youth events every year. So your support is crucial for us to maintain our commitment to the agricultural youth of Georgia, and we truly appreciate every bit of it. A few requests for the upcoming year. While we can support our operations, along with that appropriation supports our operations, when it comes time to do big projects or we need to replace expensive equipment, it's a little more difficult to find the funds to do that. So we do have some requests there for the upcoming year. To continue with our HVAC replacements, those buildings are large. Those HVAC systems are quite expensive out there. But we're working on chipping away at them. And paving and resealing around the property. We've got several areas that have never been paved that need to be paved, and then areas that are paved that need to be refinished or sealed. Equipment, I've got a few things listed there. I got a few pictures of some equipment. We've got some pretty dated vehicles and trucks on the lot, which, on the facility, but our trucks usually are around the facility. So thankfully they'll last a long time, but we're to the point where we do need to replace a few things. Buildings, we need a pole barn for our maintenance and operations area. And we had Reeves Arena on the north side, if you've been there lately, when we replaced some of the HVAC units on the arena portion, we were able to put concrete slabs underneath those HVAC units on the outside with picnic tables, so it provides a nice place for folks to sit. We would love to do that on the other side when we have fairgoers and visitors, to just allow them some shade to go sit and rest. Next slide is results from an economic impact study that we had done by the Carl Vinson Institute a few years ago. In total, we generate about $133 million a year total impact to the state. So, we host a lot of different events, from dog shows to livestock shows and horse shows and you name it, coin shows. So, we're excited about the things we have going on, about 200 events a year, and we hope to continue to do so.
All righty, thank you, ma'am. Any questions, members of the committee? I've got one, and it may be a deeper conversation at some point. With the 900,000 annual appropriation, that helps to offset the livestock shows for the youth events. With the multitude of other events that you have throughout the year, are those costs covered by entry fees from entrants that come up and utilize the fairgrounds?
Yes, yeah, for the most part.
Yeah, the cost comes with the youth programs. Every other show that we have out there, whether it be an equine event for adults, a commercial event, they're paying full rate, full commercial rate. A lot of the cost from us is the youth occupies 60+ days a year of our facility, and we're either charging nothing or a very minute rate to use the facility. So we're losing opportunity cost as well. They're occupying the facility. We can't sell it at commercial rates. So there's a lot that goes into that figure of 2.6 million, but the 900,000 that the state appropriates to us, I mean, that really makes a difference for us to be able to do that.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Any other questions? Thank you. Appreciate y'all being here today.
Thank you all.
Mitch Edwin, Georgia Soil and Water. And Mitch today, thanks for being with us today, Mitch. I'll turn it over to you.
Oh, I appreciate the invite, Chairman. So one of the biggest things that I would like to speak on is last session, OPB put in our budget to or a line item with no funding to provide a report of the necessity of the unpermitted Category 1 watershed dams across the state. So first, let me explain what a Category 1 dam is. It's one of our watershed, it would be one of our watershed dams that the state owns through easements that our local conservation districts hold. And a Category 1 dam is defined that if the dam was breached, there would be potential loss of life. So there are 200 of those across the state. 140 of those are unpermitted. And I would like to point out that an unpermitted dam doesn't necessarily mean it's more likely to breach than a dam that is permitted. It just means that it hasn't been through that final step for EPD to permit it. Majority of these were reclassified up to Category 1 a couple years ago with some studies that EPD did that were well needed. And we realized we had these Category 1 dams. And what happens for the move to Category 1 from Category 2 to Category 1 is these dams were built in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So there's been a lot of growth and development downstream, which raises the potential and causes them to go to Category 1. They're still inspected by EPD, us, and NRCS in some forms throughout the year. So again, I just want to reiterate that because they're permitted doesn't necessarily mean that they're more likely to breach than a dam that's permitted. And I would like to say that we have what we refer to in our office, assessments on 95% of those dams. And an assessment would be your first study, environmental studies to see what would be needed and throws out suggestions of moving forward to get that dam permitted. So I have submitted that report. Be careful with what I say here. I don't think it's a bad report, but the federal government shutdown kind of hurt us because we are partners within RCS with that. And we were trying to gather information from them to put our final stamp and add some things to that. And then unfortunately weren't able to reach out to them to get that. One of the main reasons that we were looking to do that is since these dams were federally funded, USDA still has what they would consider an interest in those dams. If it hasn't reached what they refer to as the economic impact value, then the state would have to buy out that remaining balance on the dam to breach it. That was some.
Say that one more time.
Okay. So when these dams were built with
The
federal
permitted dams? Or
Yes,
the
sir.
permitted?
total across the landscape of the state's watershed dams, they were built with federal funds. And then the federal government gifted them, and you can argue if it was a gift or not, but gifted them to the state for the purpose of flood control and sedimentation storage. So there's still a balance on a lot of these dams of what the federal government considers their economic investment. And if that has not been met for us to breach a dam, the state would have to pay off that balance to the federal government.
But we don't know what that balance may or may not be at this point.
Not at this point. That was some of that last minute information we were trying to gather to put in the report until they shut down. So I do know that it's out there. It's something that we talk routinely with our partners when we're working with them. But as far as an exact number, no, sir.
Moving forward, maybe between now and January, can you try to get that information and get to understanding it's not in this report, but maybe submit that as well?
Yes, sir. I think there's a couple of things that when they're back, we could build on their report and add to it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any
Yes, sir.
questions? Thank you for being here today.
Okay.
You done?
No, sir.
Okay.
I can.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I thought you might be done.
I will move on though and kind of talk, we think that's a good segue because we talked a little bit about how the government shutdown has affected us. And we currently hold 2 other agreements that we were kind of concerned about. Early in the spring, we were fortunate enough to maintain those and hold on to those. Those are important to our agency. We kind of work on the mindset that we get our operational funds from the state, meaning payroll and any expenses that come with keeping employees in offices or on the road. And program money, we seek agreements from the federal government to put on. And we currently have just a shade under $1 million to put ag best management practices throughout the state. Glad to see that we were able to hold on those. And the last thing I would like to leave you with, Mr. Chairman, is our erosion and sediment control program, where we review the sedimentation control plans for all the development going on in the state. Last fiscal year, we reviewed over 4,200 of those plans that made up a little over 25,000 disturbed acres. The Erosion and Sediment Control Act gives us 35 days to review those plans. We like to maintain a 2-week turnaround because we know we're the last step in that process, and contractors and developers are ready to go. Local municipalities are ready to start receiving tax funds on that. Unfortunately, our staffing level has kept us at about a 30-day turnaround. 2 issues there. we have a very high turnover rate. I like to refer to our agency when it comes to this as the minor leagues. We bring in people, we train them, and then they're going to the private sector. I know that's a recurring theme across state government. I'm not here to necessarily sing the blues about that, but just to grow awareness of the fact that the other side of that issue is a volume issue as the states grow and developments continuing to kick off. Not only do we face a huge turnover percentage, well, the staff that we are able to keep, or while we have them, we're kind of short staffed on that side. So one thing I would like the committee to consider as we get further on down the road and into January is some increase in staff in that area, so we can handle the volume that we have and be able to get back to that 2-week turnaround to keep Georgia moving. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I am done now.
I do apologize for that.
No, you're good.
Out of curiosity, do you have a breakdown, and if you can provide it for us later, that'll be fine. You said 25,000 acres is generally what the plans have been submitted for review by the agency. Do you have a breakdown of what that 25,000 acres entails? Whether it's, mall development, warehouse storage, or whatever it may be. It'd be interesting, I think, for the committee to know kind of what that breakdown might be.
Yes, sir. I can get that to you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Any questions? All righty. Again, apologize, but thank you.
No, you're good. Thank you
Appreciate
for
you
your
being
time.
here today. Economic Development, Mr. John. How are you doing today?
Hey, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is John Moffett with Economic Development. And with me today, I have Gracie Beasley, and she's our new government affairs person. And so we are thrilled to have her with us.
Welcome.
I'll start off with, if it's pleased with the committee, just a couple of items that were in our 26 budget, just to let you know where we're at with those types of things. In our current budget this year, we did receive $120,000. They transferred the Joint Defense Commission from Technical College to our department this year. And so we've been working with them. We've had one board meeting. We'll have a second board meeting in January. The committee chairs on that are Will Ball and Senator Kirkpatrick. And so the nice thing about this committee is it really gives the defense community an opportunity to have a voice. And so we go around the state to the different communities, and they come in where the military installations are. And it lets us know what's happening within their ranks, what they're doing, how important they are to the community. And I don't think people realize how important these military installations are to the communities they're in. They are a huge economic driver. And so it's really good because they have a voice. I think they really appreciate that the word is coming to us. And then we will be responsible for having a report to you by the end of the year. And so we've brought on Carl Vinson Institute. And so they're going to kind of do a study, and they're going to be taking the minutes, and we're going to have a report at the end of the year on all this. So I think it'll be a really good opportunity for that. Some other things are, we used to have a program called Rural Development, and that has kind of been broken down into two pieces. Half of that money came into our Global Commerce Division for the project manager and site person, and then the other part of that money went to and spoke earlier to the expo with the Department of Agriculture for Rural Prosperity. And so I think that's been working out very well. The last few pieces are just pass-through items that have come through our budget for different items. One of them is our friends are here with the World Congress Center. There's $250,000 that has been removed. That was for FIFA World Cup. That was for security measures and things like that leading up to that, which is going to be a huge event coming up in this coming summer. And then some other things, Martin Luther King, $125,000 ad. They had some renovations and things like that they needed. So that's kind of the main items that were hitting our budget that I just wanted to talk about, to give you an update on where they are. If it's okay with you all, I'd just like to talk about some of the successes that we've had over the past year. Our Council for the Arts, they served 151 communities, and they issued over 406 grants. And if you know anything about these groups, they were probably one of the hardest hits during COVID. a lot of small business, a lot of things like that. So with the ARPA funds, with the COVID ARPA funds and things like that, it's really been a huge benefit to that group. And like I said, they've administered 406 grants. That's a small team, but a lot of work, but it really has made a difference. The film team, over 2.3 billion in state revenue, created 4.3 million workdays. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. You know, we did the film tax credit. I know that's up for debate and questions, but that was back in 2007 when a lot of states were kind of shutting those things down. And the nice thing about that is it's grown this industry organically in this state, and it's provided a lot of jobs. And a lot of these industries that have grown, they do not get the benefit of the tax incentive. So it really has been a very good thing if you're looking at it from that perspective. But it is $2.3 billion in state revenue. And like I said, it does support a tremendous amount of jobs. Tourism, that supports 470,000 jobs. 45.2 billion was in tourist spends this year. We've moved back in, I've been here a long time, but a few years ago, we were at number 9 and 10 in the country. We're down to number 5 now. And that's pretty impressive. I don't know if we're ever going to move beyond that because you have California, Texas, New York. I mean, they're going to be Florida, little place, be tough. But number 5, with what we have, we've been doing a tremendous job. And we're very proud of the success we've had there. Our trade, 4 years in a row, we've had record trade, 175 successes. That means that we have helped companies either branch out and sell their product internationally, or we've helped them find a distributor where they could have been saving money internationally. So we've had 175 successes on that, and we're constantly growing those numbers on exports outside the country. We're hitting record numbers every year. So we're very proud of the group that they do. The Centers of Innovation, I don't know if you all know exactly what they are. What they do is we kind of talk about how they connect small businesses with the research institutions around the state, helping them with the latest, greatest things. You may have a problem with one of your manufacturing concepts or something like that. We may bring someone in from Georgia Tech and connect them, they can help them. Aerospace is a huge industry in this country, in this state, and that's one of our fastest growing. And we work with Georgia Tech and the other institutions, the research institutions, to help small businesses. You hear about drones. I mean, that division grew tremendously in Georgia about 10, 12 years ago, and it's still growing. So it's been very successful. So we're very proud of that group and what they do. And it helps small businesses, helps them. They make connections, they get to network, and it helps them, you know, people learn about them and be able to help market and bring things to market, which is huge as well. Next group is Global Commerce. Everyone knows about that group. We assisted 193 businesses. The number of business within the department, 308, 26.3 billion in investment, and 23.2 thousand jobs. That's what they've done in the past year. This year so far, first quarter, numbers are up from last year. So things are going very well on that. The other things I guess we'd like to talk about is maybe FIFA, the big World Cup. We're planning that. That is going to be a huge, huge impact in the state of Georgia. I know with the friends at the World Congress Center, we're working with them and trying to make that a big event. You're going to have a captive audience here from, I think it's 37 days, if I'm not mistaken. And I guess the big dates are going to be this December. We're going to know the 8 countries that have been playing the games here in Georgia. So we're planning for that. Currently, we have a 750,000 media plan that we're going to be rolling out. And we think the big successes for that can be where these communities where they may not, you know, be in Atlanta, they can have viewing parties and things like that. So it's really going to be important, I think, for us to know come December what countries are going to be, so then we can focus on that. We currently are working with Brand USA, and we had an ad, Waterloo Station in England, and so I had a video of it. I don't have it with me, where the sales and marketing on, I don't have that, go figure. But we had that video, and it was really impressive because you see people walking through the train station, you see that Georgia and things like that, the Georgia Peach and Visit Georgia and things like that. So a lot of successes we see on the horizon. We know that's going to be a big event, and we're just waiting to see what those countries are going to be come December. that's kind of it. I mean, we do have the rural site, the grad site and things like that. We work with our friends here. I think, Mr. Chris is going to be talking about that, so I won't steal his thunder. He doesn't like that when we do that. So, that's kind of it for our department. If you have any questions, I'd gladly answer any questions you may have. I thank you for the time.
Two quick things.
Yeah, go.
On the grad site certification, how many communities do we have across the state that have received that certification? Do we know?
Well, let's see. I don't know how many communities we have, but we have 15 between grad site and site development already between the first two rounds.
Okay.
I can get that number for you. I don't know exactly. I don't know if Chris may know the exact number of grad sites. But some of the criteria for a grad site, you must control the land. It has to be at least 50 acres, and you have to, and what the grad site is to make sure that 250,000 is make sure that the due diligence is done, the title search, make sure you're not putting something on a cemetery or something like that.
Right.
So that's what the main purpose of that is. But we can get you that number, sir, exactly how many are.
Okay. And then, and you can provide it for us later on the, innovation centers. Can we get a little bit more detailed information on the success that those centers have had? I know some of them have over the time done different things, but if we can get a more detailed, a report or just information on what those centers have been able to accomplish and the great success stories,
Gladly, I can
would certainly
provide that.
appreciate that.
To Bailey, absolutely.
And then lastly, I know you mentioned viewing parties for the soccer games coming up around the state, but what other plans has the department made to bring in some of the community leaders to be able to interact with these folks who will be attending
Well,
the games?
we have our visitor centers around the state, the 9 visitor centers, so we're going to have showcasing things in there. And then we're going to be working with a marketing plan through our tourism division to work with CVBs and things like that. I would imagine the different chambers and things like that, we'll have a reach out with all of them to talk about that, because when you're talking about a viewing party, you got to be careful, there's certain
Sure.
permits and things like that. So we want to be careful on what we say, and make sure that people follow, all the legal regulations and things like that. But it'll be a full reach out on that. We'll have things on our website for people to go to, and we'll be reaching out to the communities on, the main thing is who's coming, and then when they're coming, when the games are scheduled, and then we'll put out a full schedule on those things.
And you'll be able to loop in rural community leaders to one-on-one with some of these leaders that are coming in from business leaders from around the country. I think that was a lot of what the committee had in mind when we started this conversation last year. Understanding, the games being televised, et cetera, but I think there was also a tremendous amount of interest in making sure that the one-on-one that rural leaders may have that opportunity to interact with business leaders who will be here in Atlanta during that time.
Yeah, Sydney Smith is kind of heading up with us along with Gracie here, so we can get you an update on.
Okay.
Probably once December rolls through, we could probably give you an update on what our full plans are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Gracie, welcome. Oh, I'm sorry. Chairman Green.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Good to see you this morning. Georgia has a real opportunity to showcase itself with the 250th anniversary. What do y'all have planned so far?
Well, we're kind of looking at that. We're working on that currently. We haven't received any funding on that. We're trying to talk to communities about, because I look at it as an extravaganza on top of the 4th of July. It's just a very special 4th of July. It's 250 years. So we're hoping that communities will expand on that and grow on that. But we haven't, we're working with, the Humanities Council and the governor's office a little bit on what, kind of ideas for that. And so we still have some time on that, but we are reaching.
Not much. We start in January.
We have started. We do have a website. We're working on some things like that with the website and things like that. But I mean, probably working with our tourism communities and things like that and what the communities want. And if they want, they can reach out to us with any help or any kind of networking or advertising that we can help them with. That's what we probably do.
I understand we have some type of week that's been designated for celebrations here at the Capitol.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Be honest with you, sir, I don't know. I know we're working with Humanities and the Historical Society, Todd Grosh down in Savannah, and they're kind of leading that, and we're kind of helping on the back end with them.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman Bonner.
Thank you. Well, as a follow-up, did y'all ask for any funding?
No, we didn't make a request for that.
Okay. Okay.
But I mean, if we can put a plan together, we kind of follow the governor's leadership and, you know, we were asked for a flat budget. And so we have some money we're certainly going to put some money into our marketing dollars from tourism into this. We know that. It's just, you know, we're waiting to get, you know, we're working, like I said, we've been working over the last probably 8 months with Humanities and the the Historical Society down in Savannah. So we've been working with them and kind of they're the experts on, you know, the 250. So we're letting them kind of lead that charge, but we're there as far as a website and things like that. And we will post any type of events that any communities are having on the website so people can see that and know what attractions they're performing and putting on in their local centers.
Okay, then a couple other questions regarding the Joint Defense Commission. So I'm a part of that commission, and it seems as though that the Georgia Guard is still coordinating all of that.
Mr. Maddox, we have him on contract and he's been doing a great job for us. So he's kind of coordinating all of that, herding the cats each meeting. And so the next meeting will be in Savannah. I believe it's January 5th and 6th.
So he's actually contracted through the Department of Economic Development?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. And then last question I have is, you know, as you know, Georgia's got a thriving music industry here, and of course with some of the challenges that we face with the movie industry, you know, it's certainly you know, the music industry is something I think could certainly help bolster that overall entertainment aspect. Part of just what I wanted to ask within the department, though, is that is there a reason why we don't have we've got a Department of Film? What about music? Was there why did we consider it a lesser? Do we consider it what?
That's a tough one. You know, it started back, you know, we used to have the Music Hall of Fame down in Macon, and all those halls of fames got kind of closed down back in 2012 because they said they had to be self-supporting. So we did have, you know, the Music Hall of Fame Awards. Lisa Love came to our department and worked with us. And, you know, I guess if there's requests in music, and we could do some more research on that, I don't know if we're getting a lot of demand on that. And don't quote me on that. I just don't know. Be honest with you. So we're not getting any special funding for music. Most of the funding, it's a small group. I mean, you know, as far as requests go, they're in the red in personal services every year, about $90,000. So I have to shift marketing dollars, which they only have about 200,000 to cover their personal services.
I'm
So
talking
it's tough.
more about, you know, the actual industry
Yeah,
itself.
and
right?
so I don't know what calls or concerns we're getting at our department. I don't hear a lot of that, but I could check with Lee Thomas to see if we're getting any increase on that, but I haven't, to my knowledge, I haven't heard anything being brought up.
All right,
And if
thank
I
you.
could add one more thing, talking about like shortcomings, our rent, we're about $400,000 in the hole on that currently this year. And if you see our space and you go there, it's top quality rental space. We're paying just under $29 a square foot. And in that location, you're getting anywhere from $48 to $55 a square foot, depending on your footprint. And so we have a great deal there, but our rent goes up 2.5% every year. We really haven't asked for additional money. We did get 150,000 a couple of years ago, but we're going to be there 21 years now. So you can imagine. And we've been able to, from Peter to pay Paul to meet that. But this year we'll be at a $400,000 deficit on our rent.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
One just additional note, if I might add, just a thank you to the department for the work that you're doing, as many around our state are looking for opportunities in the closure of the forestry mills, pulp and paper industry, with closure of International Paper, Riceboro,
Yeah.
Cedar Springs over in West Georgia, and this just recently West Fraser announcing their closure in Augusta. So thank you for the work y'all are doing
Appreciate that.
on that.
We try our best.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank
Appreciate you
everyone.
being here today.
Appreciate it.
World Congress Center, Mr. Kevin.
Pop in my presentation here real quick.
Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, having us. Yes, I think each of you have a handout right in front of you, so if you'll follow along with me. But first of all, if I can introduce my colleagues and teammates here with me. I think you know Lindsay Strickland, our Vice President of Government Affairs, and Joe Bacher, our Chief Commercial Officer for the World Congress Center. They'll keep me in line if I miss anything on this presentation today, but we're so thankful to be here with you and just kind of walk through what we're doing and what we're trying to achieve here. We might even touch on a few of the topics that John also mentioned in his report. But first, we're a good investment at the end of the day. I think you know that. We've got our most recent economic impact numbers, jobs. We support 15,000 jobs, 221 million in tax revenues for state and local governments, and then $1.9 billion in economic impact. With that, a good investment. We appreciate your continued support and the governor's office continued support for investment in the World Congress Center as we continue to reinvest in the facilities. On the right hand, you'll see we continue to reinvest money that we make each year. And since 2002, we've reinvested $175 million in the World Congress Center. Additionally, we built the Signia Hotel. We're in our second year of operation, about to finish up our second full year of operation. I am pleased to report that it is doing well and exceeding our expectations right now on performance. So that is a good thing. The highlighted, bolded projects are ones that you have provided funding for and that we have completed. And currently, we're working on our roof replacement project, which is a multi-year project, about $52 million on that. I'm pleased to report that we continue that journey, but we have to work in and around events. But if you are above or see the Congress Center from above, we're, in my words, 2/3 of the way there and almost there. And last but not least, elevator and escalator modernization is important for us, and we continue to invest in those. And if you happen to be in B building for the World Congress Center during an event, you'll notice that a few of the units are being worked on, and hope to finish that up sometime late next year. The money that we received this past year was for HVAC replacement, and basically that's broken down into several parts. We've been expanded and we were born in 74 and 83, 92, 2002, and then our most recent expansion with the BC Exhibit Hall. A lot of our units are past their original design, and so we appreciate the investment of capital within the facilities. We're using part of that on design, and then the rest will be to help us replace units. And speaking of units, we always have fun replacing some of our units in the Congress Center. Sometimes we have to fly those units in. This is just a helicopter lift for 2 rooftop replacement units that have to be placed on top of an exhibit hall when nobody's around for about a quarter of a mile. So we lift them out of the marshalling yard and put them on the roof. So we continue that journey. Now, I think I spoke to you before about our entertainment project. It's really a focus on the International Plaza of the World Congress Center. And really, it's our customer focus. Our customers have been telling us for years that they're really interested in our ability to have more retail and seek more retail environment, whether that's food and beverage or just outlets near and walkable to the World Congress Center. Fortunately, the Centennial Yards is going in with their $5 billion worth of investment right across the street, and we're so thankful for that. You know, they're putting in a hotel, they have condos, they're starting another hotel. They have entertainment with Cosm, so it's a location that you can go and enjoy events there. And they're also putting in a 5,000 seat music venue across the street. They'll have some food and beverage, and what we're looking to do with what we might develop on the International Plaza, assuming we can get a good deal at the end of the day for the state, would be to supplement and complement what goes on in the neighborhood. And we're definitely not in the business to compete against that type of investment. So these were our goals when we got the funding. We're on that journey. I can tell you we've done market studies. We're looking at assessment. The Red Deck is a parking garage that's been there forever, and so we have to go see how to build on top of it. But I can tell you we're continuing those activities, and we'll be able to report more further to you during this upcoming session on our activities. Here's just a kind of a layout a conceptual layout that we've showed before or shared before of what could potentially go on top of the International Plaza. Again, we want it to complement basically and connect to what's going on across the street from us and also in the former CNN Center. John mentioned FIFA World Cup, and FIFA World Cup will be right around the corner, as we all know. We look forward excitedly to the day in December when they finally allow us to understand what countries will be in what groups and what groups will be coming to Atlanta. And so we'll be able to really plan more during that time. We are in deep planning on a lot of various elements from public safety. We're involved in that as being the epicenter where they're going to play matches. We're also going to have the Fan Fest. But the investment money that you put together and authorized really right now is segmented into the public safety transportation piece, also event infrastructure that we'll take to support the event. And then we're going to make sure we have a little bit of contingency to understand once those teams are announced, what VIPs might be coming to Atlanta specifically, and we'll be here during that duration of time. And so that's where we are currently. We look forward to December 5th and 6th to understand who is coming to Atlanta. We know the world is coming, and it will be 30 years after we finished up the Olympic Games when we host them again in Centennial Olympic Park for that Fan Festival. Fan Fest right now is currently in the park for 20 days, so all Georgians will be able to come enjoy that event down in Centennial Olympic Park, provided they don't have tickets to the matches. So we look forward to that. Just a straight layout of what Centennial Olympic Park will look like. Recognize it's busy, but there'll be a main stage, perhaps a secondary stage. Some of the different vendors will be there. There'll be a big merchandise location in Centennial Olympic Park. So we look forward to activating that for the FIFA Fan Festival. And really why I'm here today is to really talk to you about our upcoming ask that we've requested as our number one priority through OPB for FY27. And much like we've concentrated on our HVAC systems, it's now time to concentrate on our electrical systems. They continue to be about the same age as our HVAC systems right now. And so it's time to seek some money to reinvest in those, first get a design, and then we can move forward with the appropriate way. On how to master plan our electrical systems. Our electrical systems obviously are important today on a cool day when we have an event in the house, but they also support our infrastructure of the event. So we do exhibits and we hook up electrical for exhibitors when they come to the World Congress Center. So that's a very important piece, and it also helps us be a little bit more efficient. So that will be on our list of capital needs for this upcoming year. Just a few pictures of some things that we could work on. Obviously, life safety systems are important, lighting systems and control systems, replacement of equipment and transformers, distribution panels, et cetera, will be on top of our list. But first, we feel it's important to get a master plan about how to do it. Or otherwise, we might not be doing it in a good sequential order. And with that, I'll end my comments and seek any questions that you may have of me about the World Congress Center or anything I've presented. Thank you.
Any questions, members of the committee? Any additional need that you see? I know likely once the countries are announced that'll be playing here, any additional need there in terms of security that you will anticipate?
Well, I think it's a great question, and thank you. I think I'll reserve that until we know the countries, but I think there could be additional need from there, just from a protection, safety, security, transportation, et cetera, of our whole entire campus at the end of the day. So we'll be, 37 days, as John pointed out, of the 45-day period that we'll have activities around the campus. So thank you for asking that question.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for being here today. Appreciate y'all's time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Christopher Nunn from Community Affairs. Come on down. How are you today?
Man, good to be with y'all.
And I am here, delighted to be here to update you on what's going on at DCA. We have been certainly active this year since we were last together, addressing a host of community development needs on the housing front. I really look over the last 5 years, we've been able to either create or preserve more than 29,000 senior and workforce housing units across the state in 122 communities. through the support of the Rural Workforce Housing Program. We've led to the creation of more than 2,000 new entry-level homes in about 30 communities. And with the Georgia Dream program just this year, we've been able to help about 2,000 first-time home buyers. That's about 5,000 over the last 5 years and 60,000 over the life of that program. You just heard from economic development, and I'm trying to get you an answer on the grad site, John. I texted a couple of our colleagues. We work super closely together. That number is in the dozens. It's not in the, it's not more significant than that. And I'll talk a little bit about the site development program, but obviously there's great work going on the economic development front, and we're supporting the governor and our partners' efforts there. I'll talk a little bit about the small business development work. We've got a couple of programs, the State Small Business Credit Initiative, which is a lending program, as well as the Downtown Development Revolving Loan Fund, and I'll talk about that momentarily. And on the infrastructure side, CDBG pipeline is certainly quite strong. I'll talk a little bit about disaster recovery. I mean, we've got 70 some odd programs in the agency. I'd love to talk about them all. Director Shemp, Commissioner Harper, and I got to spend time down at the fair. It's my hometown. I'm super proud of the fairgrounds and the work that they do. We got to celebrate 14 Centennial Farms. That's a program that our Historic Preservation Division leads up, and that was a lot of fun. Certainly a significant amount of our funding does come from the federal government. As you heard from Commissioner Harper, and we've been monitoring very closely, I do think that the shutdown, anticipate that there will be an end. Certainly prolonged shutdown has some pretty significant impact on us, or the potential for that. That varies across our programs, right? Because each program runs differently. In our Housing Choice Voucher program, we make $15 to $16 million a month in payments. That's a big number. It's an entirely federally funded program. There are smaller programs. One of our supportive housing programs is about $90,000 a month. We only have $50,000 in funds, and we don't have any ability to draw those additional funds down. So that's been a hiccup. And because we are accustomed to operating, unfortunately, in a shutdown environment, we have shutdown procedures in place. So we try to draw down as much administrative funding in advance as we can. But I just mentioned historic preservation. Our Historic Preservation Division and the National Park Service only allows them to draw down 2 weeks of administrative funding at a time. And so a 40-day shutdown certainly requires that we be creative in that regard. Again, we anticipate an end to the shutdown, and I'm happy to answer any questions there. I thought it might be helpful just to look back at the budget from last year and touch on a handful of things, and then I'll go wherever you want to go, Mr. Chairman. Does that make sense? Looking in the FY26 budget, you included a $750,000 increase for an accountable housing initiative. This was a pilot program that came out of the House last year. The $750,000 amounts to a 75% increase to the pilot. We launched that program on a very aggressive, accelerated schedule last year, and there were 6 grants that were made with the initial funding. With the additional funding that was included in this budget, we are running a grant cycle as we speak. The grant application deadline is 5:00 this afternoon. When we get together during the session, we'll have an update on the number of grants that were made through this year's competitive cycle. The $500,000 increase to fund the regional commissions. I was with our regional commission partners just last week for their conference. The 12 regional commissions all serve their respective regions, but they also work very closely together to try to address needs across the state. We rely on them from a comprehensive planning process, as well as support for so many of our rural communities when it relates to grants, CDBG, One Georgia funds, et cetera. The $500,000 increase was certainly appreciated on their part. And the first quarter payments have been made. We make quarterly payments to the regional commission. So I guess that's what 125 that has been made there. There was a $2 million ad for one-time funding for the State Housing Trust Fund for the homeless. And really the objective behind this is to access additional federal funds. It's quite apparent to all of us that the federal government has been shut down for roughly 40% of the time since our fiscal year started. But we are working diligently on that front. I will tell you that this has been a commitment that you have had to the trust fund over the last several years. And just this last year, we were able to, access about $42.9 million in federal funds. I know that over the last several years that number has been steadily increasing as a result of having the dry powder to provide the additional match. 2 years ago, before you put money in the budget, we were drawing down about 23 million in federal funds. And so I think that you can chalk that up to success. And I'll report back after the Housing Trust Fund board meeting in December when we get into the session.
Is that 42 million? Was that a 42 million increase as a result of the increase that we included in our budget? Or was
42
that
million
total? Okay,
That's
thank
right.
you.
So, and then the 500,000 to increase funds for a special housing assistance program. That's pass-through funding for the statewide independent living council. It comes up every year. And that was a pretty significant increase from their previous $100,000 budget. Those funds are dispersed in monthly payments, and so we have to date dispersed 150,000. In September, I know that they were able to complete 12 home access projects. So again, the additional funding just is enabling them to do more project activity. I'll jump to the amended budget, amended 25. There was one ad that is truly a pass-through addition. It was $112,000 roughly for the historic rural church trail over in the CSRA or Central Savannah River Valley area. We have encumbered those funds and have a contract with the CSRA, the Regional Commission. I don't believe that they've actually hired the person to lead that effort, so no funds have actually been dispersed, though they have been encumbered. You also included, and I know that this was something that we had a lot of conversation about in the last session, $5 million to increase the downtown development revolving loan fund. I mentioned just a few minutes ago the small business focus of our economic development team, which is working alongside our downtown development efforts to help grow rural downtowns all across the state. The Downtown Development Revolving Loan Fund came about in 1999-2000 era, and it was a public-private partnership. There were philanthropic funds that went to the Georgia Municipal Association and public funds that came to DCA to help grow small businesses in rural downtowns. Of the $5 million that was added into the budget last year to make loans to small businesses, $2,144,000 has been loaned out. And there's an additional pipeline of about 1.2 million for those funds. I would describe that as I would for most of the funds that you provide us for lending programs and for grant programs as working capital. So you're providing us with that working capital that we're then able to go out and generate activity in the market, if you will. The same could be said for the $28 million increase in funds for rural workforce housing. Again, this is to help us to perpetuate that rural workforce housing program that I mentioned over the last 2 years since it was launched, has enabled a commitment of more than 2,000 single-family, first-time homebuyer homes in communities across the state. This program, run through One Georgia, is administered or is on a quarterly cycle. And so in the first quarter, we extended $7.2 million in awards. And that would keep us in line for funding over the next three cycles of this fiscal year. I'll tell you that this program continues to have a lot of interest and has been very successful. I was talking with a community down in your part of the state, Mr. Chairman, recently, and they were highlighting the fact that the basis for land and infrastructure that they would typically have before they start building a home, would be somewhere in the $65,000 to $70,000 range. That's before you start using any timber to build a house. And so as a consequence, that home price is going to be high. Through this program, where we're putting in infrastructure that is owned by the local community, we've been able to bring that basis down in the land and the infrastructure into the $25,000 to $30,000 range, which that delta gets passed along to the home buyer. And we do that with this program. So excited about that. And again, continue to have a strong pipeline. You asked about the rural site development program. So there's an additional $20 million in the budget last year. This directly relates to our grad sites and the question you had for John. So this was the second year that you have funded this appropriation, and we are currently accepting applications for our third round of grants. Okay, so this program is administered on a semi-annual basis every 6 months. And in the first two rounds, we extended just north of $17 million in awards. We currently have 10 applications in the pipeline for about $10.5 million in funds. Our team collectively is out reviewing these sites. They were actually out doing site reviews last week in communities. And so that program continues to be very effective at helping us to get those grad sites that you were asking about prepared. I guess the one other thing, and I've mentioned disaster recovery. So you included last year in the budget $25 million in the One Georgia budget for Hurricane Helene recovery. We launched that program earlier this year. We are actually currently accepting the second round of applications. In the first round, we extended 9 awards totaling approximately $5 million, just in excess of $5 million. The deadline for the next round of community applications is December the 10th. So we will be extending those awards in the next round. I think it's important here, and you ask a question of Commissioner Harper, and I'm going to preemptively address that. These were state funds put in the One Georgia account to address disaster recovery. And we have a lot of communities that have, I would say, relatively small but very urgent needs that don't meet this long federal timeline. And that's what those awards that I just mentioned amount to. We also received a community development block grant for disaster recovery totaling $266 million. Our team, because we are very aggressive at getting all of the work done, literally as soon as Helene cleared our state, our folks were working on getting the ground laid for the disaster recovery funding. We received the go-ahead on June 24th, and we launched the first phase, which is the homeownership program, homeownership repair, in July. There's an additional program focused on rental rehab. In the affected parts of the state, there are a number of people who rent their homes. There's a rental rehab program that is currently in the RFP process and will be coming online soon. And we are also launching a community infrastructure program. To date, in the homeownership repair, so the blue tarps on roofs, we have received 2,700 pre-applications from all of the 44 eligible counties. There are 44 counties that are eligible for those funds. And we have 927 applications that are in progress with getting the funding approved and getting the work done. The contractors out to do the work. The preponderance of those 927 are in Richmond, Lowndes, and Coffee County, which I suspect if you look at the map, those also were some of the harder hit areas of the state. Just wanted to update you, as I promised, on disaster recovery. I think that really covers our budget, aside from GFA, which is a pass-through, and I think you're going to hear from them next. So with that, I'm sure you're tired of hearing me talk. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from members of the committee? Just one quick one, if you don't throw something at me. How many local governments are currently not eligible for state grants due to non-compliance with reporting rules?
Yeah, so great question. And non-compliance is really based on a variety of different program rules. So I'll speak for DCA, but I also am going to point you to audits. We have 13 local governments that are non-compliant with the Service Delivery Act. I'm sure you're quite familiar with. We have 37 local governments that have lost their qualified local government status, which relates to comprehensive planning. For context, I'll remind you, 159 counties, also 536 cities. There are 189 local governments that are behind on their annual report of local government finances. If you looked at Greg Griffin's audit reports, there is probably a pretty high correlation between being behind on your audits and being behind on your report of local government finances. Greg and I were talking last week, actually at the Regional Commission's conference, about the fact that the single audits are certainly held up because of the federal shutdown. That does not mean that a local government gets a pass on submitting their local government audit. And December 31st is fast approaching. So it certainly continues to be an issue for many of our communities. And again, great question. And for a variety of different factors, there are still a couple of hundred governments that are outside of compliance.
All right. Commissioner, thank you. Appreciate
Thank
you
y'all.
being here today.
77, grass house.
Johnny Sabo. Sabo, thank you for being with us today.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Right, there it goes. All right, good morning, and thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Chairman and subcommittee. Appreciate your time this morning. Little update from the Georgia Forestry Commission. But before I start, I wasn't going to touch on block grants, but I do want to emphasize Commissioner Harper and his team have done an outstanding job. And we are still meeting with them weekly, sometimes more than that, to, as he said, get the work plan going. And we're looking forward to the government opening back up and getting that moving. I want to highlight this because I think it plays a part into our presentation, but our core values is something I don't really stand up here and talk about. But two that are a little bit different from state government, or especially, well, one for state government is feeling responsible for our own success. And I think we have a lot of people that sometimes they just sit there and wait on things or wait on something to be handed to them. And so we really drive this and using facts and decisions to drive our data or drive our decisions. Some highlights from fiscal year FY25. Wildfires were up. The amount of wildfires and acreage, I can tie that directly to Helene, but we also had a little bit of a fire season in our mountains last year. Deployments were down, but we also didn't quite let folks go as much as we were having a lot of fires in state. But year to date this year so far, we're already 60 more deployments than we were last year. 1.47 million acres of prescribed fire. That is our 8th highest year ever. So appreciate not only our folks, but all the practitioners that get out there and apply prescribed fire, because even with all the debris and all the issues we had, really a great year for prescribed fire. And then the last one's the one I'm probably most proud of, and especially when we take a deeper dive into the numbers. Last year, when we look at everything, we were at 12.9% turnover. But when we back out retirements, and we had a lot of 34 plus year employees that retired, we were at 8.6% turnover. Year to date this year, we're at 3.4%. And if I back out retirements, we're at 2% turnover year to date this year. So some really good work being done on our team, and appreciate the investment by this committee and many others that's just helped us get there. Some of the funds we received last year, 10.9 and the amended budget for tractors, the map that's on your right-hand side there, that is where those tractors went. Short version, the blue tractors were new tractors that were in that impact area that weren't big enough to work in the fuel load. We pushed those out to some external counties. We ended up being able to purchase 29 heavy tractors with our budget last year, between the 1.1 million that was already in our budget and the 10.9 that was given in the amended budget. Those tractors are, well, all the John Deeres are in. I think there's 17 John Deere tractors, 16 John Deere tractors there at GR Manufacturing being equipped with the forestry package, and the rest are expected to be in Albany sometime this month. And then usually once they get to Albany, it takes about a month for them to turn them around and get them to us. So a lot of good stuff there. The new helicopter, we expect to take ownership of that before the new year. We're back and forth. Our pilots hard. There's a training program that goes with it. So I'm glad they're getting trained on it. That makes me feel a little bit better. And so we're looking forward to seeing what that does for us. Some other things for FY26. Equipment, 1.4 million. That went to all lowboy trailers. We ended up doing really good on our tractor prices, and we got more tractors than we thought. So we exclusively purchased lowboy trailers for those heavy tractors. Maintenance and repair, exactly what you would think. Everything from roofing to HVAC to multiple projects that needed completed. And then 814,000 to our Liberty Long unit, and that is a picture of it there. We should be in there, I would say, right after the new year. It is really close to being completed, and we're excited about that project. We had a bunch of pass-through grants. Some counties like McIntosh, they invoiced us before the budget was even completed. And then some counties, we're still waiting on them to invoice, but we're talking with them. And then the special project funds, I do want to mention that ended up as a special category. For overtime, we were working with OPB on that one, but there's some discussions that maybe this year that just gets added into our budget, so it doesn't have some of the stipulations on there to be able to serve as kind of a overtime budget, if you will. Fire break restoration, Commissioner Harper mentioned some of the 135 million that went to GDA. 3 million of that was pulled back for fire breaks to open existing roads and fire breaks. This was a screenshot taken last week from our project. So we have 13 projects left. We've been hitting this pretty hard and fast. So far we've invoiced GDA a little over 1.2 million, but we have a couple months we're fixing to invoice them. So that'll put us to the 2.2, 2.3 mark. And then we're going to back up and get the landowners that we didn't complete. So when I say we didn't complete, we put some initial stipulations on there, like no more than 25 hours per landowner to try to spread the money out. We bumped that up to 50 hours, but we still found going through some of that debris, it just takes a long time to open this up. So we fully anticipate utilizing that 3 million. The majority of the money was for our what we called FMIT program, fuel mitigation. So 1,300 applicants, 3.9 million has been paid to landowners. something we were going to do anyway, but the mill closure really expedited this process. We called every single landowner. If we didn't get a hold of them, we called them several times and sent them emails. I can't say we've gotten a response from all 1,300, but of those 1,300, 659 committed to wanting to use our program. Some are still trying to figure out the balance between EFRP and our program. That's kind of the other majority. Of that 659, roughly 200 were waiting on contractors. A little over 200 didn't have any contractors, and we'll talk about that in a second. And the rest said they are waiting on block grant, it's a cash flow issue. The ones that are waiting on contractors, or sorry, that did not have contractors, we worked with the master logger group and contacted every single logger in the that southeast corner, if you will, that was affected by mill closures. And logging equipment is not the best cleanup equipment when a tree is on the ground and all over the place, but it can be done. So if they were willing to use their equipment to help clean up Hurricane Helene debris, they went on a list. That list went right back to that person that requested, loggers or anybody that work in their county. So it's a Band-Aid, but we're trying to bridge that gap and help them find work while cleaning up Hurricane Helene debris. Moving on to 27, our request that we submitted to OPB, 1.7 for equipment, and that'll go mostly to trucks, not quite as many trailers, engines, and then the road tractors. 1.6 in facilities. That is once again major maintenance and repair that is always ongoing. Out of 101 facilities, we have roughly 37 that need seriously repair or replace. So that investment helps us to kind of prioritize, do we just need to put a roof and a coat of paint on it and we're good to go, or something different? And then a little over 1 million for new construction. The Coffee County shop and shed was not completely destroyed by Helene, not enough to where it qualified for a payment to be fixed. The office itself did. We're in a process of fixing that one now. The old truck shed honestly was a little bit inadequate anyway. The transport tractors were sticking out of both ends. They barely fit on the sides and the top. So this would be to complete a new truck shed in Coffee County. Some other initiatives, the equipment investments, 10.9, that's for tractors again. Back up to a couple of years ago, we started a plan of within 3 years. So we had 1 year of 10.9. If we can do 2 more years, that will allow us to replace all of our open cab tractors. And then we can ramp back down and go to a 20-year replacement cycle on our tractors. So that's what the 10.9 for, strictly for tractors. If we purchase 29 very large tractors with 10.9, I'm excited to see what we can do with some medium-sized dozers. Increased operational funding. A large portion of that is our cost of fighting fire has gone up. It's fuel and everything else you can think of, but it also comes down just to the equipment hours and the amount of equipment. I think I gave the example last year, in that Helene area, we could take one tractor and in 30 minutes have a 2-acre fire. Now it's taking 6 or 7 tractors. And what we're seeing is about a $480 increase per fire. We had 3,200 wildfires last year. So that's a large portion of it. The other remaining funds are the operational funds for the helicopter. And that's something that OPB was aware of when we originally asked for the helicopter. The conversation was, let's get the helicopter first, and then we'll look for, because it's going additional fuel, maintenance, and the other fun stuff that comes with aviation. The last one's kind of a pet one on mine is our folks pull, and I want to make sure I pull these hours for you. So the average forest ranger pulls 2,261 on-call hours annually. And that doesn't include the chief rangers that are almost always on call and everybody else. And they do that because the job requires. They're not compensated. Most of our neighboring states do have an on-call rate. South Carolina does not, and I don't think Tennessee does, but the rest do. So what we're proposing is a $2 an hour on-call rate for after hours and weekends and holidays. When they are on call, they essentially can't leave the house. They have to be able to respond they have to be to their equipment in 45 minutes. So that really ties them down. So if you're wanting to take your kid camping, and I use that example because I know that one specifically, if there's a lot of things you want to do, you are there at the house and you're committed to being on call. Some of our areas, you may be on call every 3rd or 4th week. So that's a lot. And so this would like I said, $2 an hour to be on call, to, be available for the state, and feel it's a very worthwhile investment. And, sorry, I need to skip something. And the only other thing I have on there is the Governor's Forestry Task Force. I'm happy to do an update on that, but essentially one thing I did want to highlight for this group is still working with the governor's office on some potential items, whether it's budget or other legislative items. And so as we work through that process, we're getting close, but it's a little bit too soon to say exactly what that's going to be. But the example I'll give you that is, as we're highlighting wood and we're continuing to do more in the state and market forestry, if you will, is, do we do something with the Georgia Grown Wood program, in conjunction with Commissioner Harper and his team? Do I build a state facility out of mass timber and start looking at things through that lens? And what does that mean? So, yeah, just to be determined on that. But happy to answer any questions, and yeah, thank you for your time.
Well, Director, thank you for being here today and the great work that you are doing with the Governor's Forestry Task Force. We know that y'all are putting in a lot of hours looking for opportunities and looking for ways to sustain the forestry industry here in our state and those who are employed by it, which is obviously huge. We are the #1 timber producing state in the country.
Yes, sir.
And we look forward to continuing to working with you to find those opportunities as we move forward.
Well, thank you.
Questions from members of the committee?
Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Green.
Just a thank you for what you have done for the forestry industry down in Southwest Georgia.
Yes, sir.
It's been a devastating time for us to lose the mill at Cedar Springs, but thank you for your leadership. Thank you for what you're doing to help us through this crisis.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that. And I got to say, economic development, the university systems, all the state agencies have been outstanding, and GFA as well. So it is a team effort. I think it's a long road to get there. It's not a quick answer, but I will tell the committee this. I'm very optimistic. We have great hosting conditions. We have abundant resource, and before that was some of the highest wood prices, not just in the Southeast, but in the world, and it's no longer. Right. So before it was a stop sign to attract new industry, and it is no longer a stop sign. So we're being really aggressive and excited to see where we go from here.
Chairman Livingston.
Yes. In relation to your aviation assets.
Yes, sir.
Could you briefly break that down as to what you have in the way of helicopters, planes, what kind of coverage? We had a wildfire in our district some time back, and it was relatively fast moving, and we were really scrambling to try to get some aviation asset to get a handle on how it was moving. And I think we wound up finally with the Department of Public Safety spotter plane going up. So just wondered if you could elaborate a little bit on your aviation.
Yes, sir. Happy to. So we have, this will be our second helicopter. We have one helicopter. So when it goes down, it's down. So the one that we're taking ownership in December will be our second helicopter. We have two, what's called seats, single engine air tankers. That is basically like a crop duster on steroids, if I had to sum it up. So, and then we have roughly 13 spotter planes around. The limiting factor with the aviation doesn't necessarily come into some of the planes and where they are. It depends if it's a weekend or if it's, like 5 o'clock right before, nightfall, and actually somebody getting there and to that point. And so we try to be really strategic moving things around. I will say the on-call budget is something we would do, is put pilots on call to have them more readily available. So that is part of it as well. But a lot of times when a plane is not available, that's what happened. By the time the pilot would get in his plane and make it to that location, it would be, and I'm not saying that's what happened there, but it would be close to dark and wouldn't do any good anyway. So I will say we received a disaster grant from the feds, and one of the things that we're doing with that, and granted it'll have to be in the 91 counties, but really trying to ramp up our drone program. So we're going to start with some of the smaller drones for some chief rangers and foresters with the infrared cameras. And so we're going to tip our foot into that world too, to see if we can't help with that problem. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Thank you for the great work you're doing. Thanks for being here today.
Yes, sir.
Apologize for skipping you over there after Commissioner Nunn finished. For being here today.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the invitation to speak with you here today. Again, my name is Judy Adler, and I'm the Director of Water Resources at GFA. So you probably were hoping for the eloquent Hunter Hill. You're going to have to settle for me. But for all the tough questions, I do have our Director of Financial Services here with me, JB Harden. So let's see. Should I use this? Okay, so just a reminder of GFA's mission is to conserve and improve Georgia's energy, land, and water resources. But I think all of you know that, well, I wear the water hat at GFA, so I'm mostly going to talk about water, that there are a lot of other benefits to the work we do at GFA too. It enables economic development. It also helps make water services more affordable for businesses and communities throughout the state of Georgia. And of course, it helps improve public health as well. All right, so we're talking about budget. So this is a summary of our budget for fiscal year 2026. I think y'all know that we do have a number of pass-through funds that go through GFA for the Georgia Rural Water Association, the Resource Conservation and Development Districts, and the Metropolitan North Georgia Water Planning Districts. There also is the federal SRF match, and I want to thank you all because a 20% match is required to access those important federal funds for clean water and drinking water every year. So thank you so much to this committee for providing that funding for the match. We estimate that for fiscal year 2027, we will need about $33 million for that match. Okay, so I recently hired a really smart graduate from Georgia Tech, and she just created this great map for me last week. So it shows all of our current projects at GFA. So these are projects that have been either just executed, or they're in the planning stage, engineering and design, or they're in the middle of construction. They have not closed yet. So we have over 500 projects throughout the state. Those are not house districts, those are regional water planning councils. However, that smart graduate is going to be working on those maps next. Okay, I was asked to talk about the Regional Coastal Water Supply Project. Just to clarify, the funding for this project is coming out of the amended budget for fiscal year 25 versus fiscal year 26. And it's a collaboration, as you all know, with multiple people. So we are collaborating with OPB, with EPD, as well as the local communities on this. I don't know if y'all can see this, but I thought it'd be better to talk through a map. I'm an engineer by training, so I like maps. So the funding, does this have a little laser? That's okay. So the funding is going toward a new raw water intake for Effingham County. You can see that on the top right. And it also is going for water transmission lines that are those water lines are going to go along the existing power easements. So that's reducing the cost quite a bit for that project. It also is funding a new water treatment plant for Effingham County. It's funding an expanded water treatment plant for the city of Savannah and improvements to that water intake, as well as the water lines to take that water to Bryan County. And Bryan County's, I should say, that water line is going along I-16. Okay. I thought I would mention this new initiative. We just launched it last month in October. I think you all know about the devastating impacts to Hurricane Helene on forestry, on agriculture, on communities and businesses, but also to infrastructure in the state of Georgia. So as part of the American Relief Act, Georgia was allocated close to $500 million for this new program.
One thing I do want to mention is that these funds, there's a wide range of projects that can be funded. But the funds are not to restore our water and our sewer systems to the way they were before Helene. The objective of the fund is to make those systems more resilient to future extreme weather events. There's a long list of projects that are eligible. Our call for projects was just released. It'll be open through the end of the year, as well as our annual call for projects for our clean water and our drinking water SRF programs as well, and the Georgia Fund. So please help us spread the word. Okay, that's all I have. I tried to be brief since I'm closing it out.
Thank you, ma'am. On that note, is there something you can provide to the committee that we can distribute to our communities on the 500 million?
Absolutely.
we can
Yeah, we have
Get
some
the word out for
facts
that.
I
Okay.
can send y'all.
All right. That'd be great.
And there's a lot of information on our website.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yep.
Any questions from members of the committee? All righty. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate you being here today. Thank you. Mr. Reese McAllister, Georgia. Hey, there you are.
Yes,
Hide behind the screen there. Thanks for being here today. Public Service Commission.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Sorry, Miss Judy, that I jumped up there. I was just so eager to get up here. Sorry about that. So, good morning, Chairman Meeks and members of the committee. My name is Reese McAllister, and I'm the Executive Director of the Georgia Public Service Commission. And I have with me today Tom Bond, the Director of the Utilities Division at the Commission as well. And thank you for the opportunity to provide an update on our recent appropriations and our upcoming requests that we have shared with OPB in preparation for the next session. So Chairman Jason Shaw asked that I send his regrets that he could not be here today. He would love to be here. He's in Washington, Seattle, Washington, attending the National Association of Regulatory Utility Commissioners annual meeting where commissioners from all across the country and staff and industry experts get together to talk about issues involving regulation regarding the energy sector. So I'm here today to provide you an update on the amended fiscal year 2025 and fiscal year 2026 budget appropriations and advise you of any requests we have regarding the upcoming cycle that we shared with Director Dunn at the Office of Planning and Budget meeting we held in September. I'm going to do that, and then Mr. Bond's going to complete our briefing today. He's going to talk about the increase in demand for new energy as relates to large load customers, particularly data centers, that has been very prevalent in the news recently. So he can cover that information much more completely than I can. And before I get started, I'd like to thank this committee specifically, especially Mr. Chairman, for the support of the to the commission you provided last year and the requests that it made in last year's session. So thank you so much, this committee and you for that help. And we understand, at the commission, we couldn't achieve what we're required to do without the support of you and the entire legislature and the governor. So thank you so much. And also, I'd like to thank you, Ms. Bailey, for the support that she gives us as well, and the director also of the House Budget Office. They're always so helpful. So we're very appreciative for everything that they do for us at the commission. So if you can, I have provided some exhibits. If you turn to Exhibit 1, it's an update for the amended budget for the fiscal year, for the amended fiscal year 2025. And the first item to talk about is the pipeline safety inspector equipment and vehicle cost in the amount of $42,142. That we received. The PSC employs several people in our pipeline safety division who, under a grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation, ensure that natural gas pipelines are kept up to date and remain safe. In Georgia, there are almost 90,000 miles of natural gas pipeline. Of the 159 counties in the state, intrastate natural gas is transported through 149 of them. So they're responsible for ensuring the safety of all these pipelines. And for the fiscal year 2025 budget, we requested 2 pipeline safety inspectors, along with the equipment and the vehicle associated with those inspectors. And we actually received an appropriation for 1. We renewed our request for the additional inspector, including the equipment and vehicle cost in the FY 2026 budget. And in anticipation of that request being approved, we received an appropriation in the amended FY 25 budget for the equipment and vehicle costs for that inspector, which totaled the $42,142. The equipment for this new inspector has been provided. The vehicle is expected to arrive before the end of the year.
So we're very grateful for that. So thank you. The cost of living adjustment shortfall for fiscal year 2025. Regarding these public safety inspectors, they are all state employees, but as we said, we do receive a partial grant reimbursement from the U.S. Department of Transportation. And so over the past several years that we've had COLAs, we've requested that COLA funds include the pipeline safety employees. Unfortunately, when we do get this grant reimbursement, it lags behind. The costs are incurred, we submit it for reimbursement, then there's a delay. So typically our state fiscal year has concluded before we get the money from the feds. So we have a shortfall in our budget. So we actually have just trued up these funds. And so this addition was a true up, which came to $24,108 for that one-time true up, because once we start that process, it catches up. So we're fine. It's just that initial year. And so we received that. So we're very grateful for that. Exhibit 2 will be our appropriations for our FY26 budget that we received. The first one is attorney fees in the amount of $30,000, which was a one-time allocation. The Public Service Commission, as many of you know, is a quasi-judicial body. Its decisions are subject to the judicial review in Fulton County Superior Court. And when PSC decisions are challenged, we're represented by the Attorney General's office at Fulton County Superior Court. Recently, a party in one of our cases filed for judicial review, not only in Fulton County Superior Court, but also before the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission in Washington, D.C. And the Georgia Attorney General's office does not have the personnel, nor does it have the experience to defend a case before FERC in Washington. So the recommendation for the Attorney General's office was to hire outside counsel to represent us before FERC, which was estimated to cost approximately $30,000. The case in question pertained to the Commission's denial of a company's request to utilize ratepayer money for expansion. And should FERC have overturned the Commission's decision, Georgia ratepayers could have had to pay for this $78 million expansion. FERC declined to initiate an enforcement action against the Commission, and the company did not file a request for a rehearing, which is a prerequisite to any possible appeal in federal court. In other words, we prevailed, so we're thankful for that. The company also, as I stated, did file for judicial review at the Fulton County Superior Court. That case was dismissed on October the 14th, 2025, and the deadline for the company to file an appeal of that dismissal is this Thursday, November 13th. So as of now, they have not filed for an appeal of that decision. Pipeline Safety Inspector in the amount of $102,573 for the state share of salary and annualized, along with a shortfall in funding for a previous inspector. As we said, our pipeline safety employees, they are state of Georgia employees, but we do receive a partial reimbursement under a grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation. And only one was approved, and we did ask for the second one to come back, and graciously, the legislature assisted us with that. So thank you. And in the FY26, we received that funding. So we received the $77,792 for the state share of that salary. And then the other $24,781 was for a shortfall in the previous year's estimate for what the federal government would provide. We had a shortfall there. So it was kind of a true up there to total $102,573. For this additional inspector, they've been hired, they've been working. And they're actually going through their training and providing services now. So thank you for that. And lastly, on this exhibit, the PSC attorneys, engineers, and analysts, $250,000 of annualized funding. The FY26 budget included this $250,000 for targeted salary enhancements for recruitment and retention for vital utility staff personnel. And as expressed by Chairman Jason Shaw during last year's legislative session, recruiting and retaining qualified professional staff has always been a challenge, as it is for many state agencies that are here as well at the Commission. And the technical nature of utility regulation provides unique challenges when recruiting qualified staff, and the available funds make it difficult to retain these staff members. Experience in these PSC positions has a direct correlation to savings for Georgia ratepayers, so it's very important that we have the most qualified staff. So we were able to use the appropriated funds that you provided to increase the compensation of these vital utility staff members at the Commission. And this increase in compensation for current staff members will also make us more competitive and attractive when recruiting and filling any open positions that we may have. So that completes Exhibit 2 on fiscal year 2026 appropriations. But my next exhibit, Exhibit 3, is a request that we shared with the Office of Planning and Budget back in September. In this regard, security support for our meetings, our public meetings. Every meeting at the commission is an open meeting. And the public we take public comments, we take public witnesses. And with the increased interest and concern over utilities and utility bills, we have seen an increase in participation at many of our hearings. And because of this, we've seen an uptick in the need for some security that we need to participate and help us with our meetings. So we've asked for the Georgia State Patrol. They do provide. Colonel Hitchens from the Department of Public Safety has been very gracious. He's worked with us, and when he can, he provides support. Major Langford, who's the post commander here on the Hill, he provides the support we need for our meetings. But he was honest with us when you all are in session, or when the state Supreme Court might be having a large hearing, it might prohibit us from being able to get support from the resources they have on duty. So we've reached out to their department on a memorandum of understanding to see about using off-duty officers for this service, so we can be guaranteed we have coverage at all times. And so the sheet you have there in Exhibit 3 is the cost, $34,560 for those costs to provide us security from off-duty officers and coordinate that through the Department of Public Safety. So that's our Exhibit 3 that we've shared with the Office of Planning and Budget. And now, as I said, I'll be followed by Mr. Bond, who will discuss increased energy demand.
Good morning. I'm Tom Bond. I'm Director of Utilities at the Commission. Wanted to talk to you about the unprecedented new energy demand in Georgia, primarily due to data centers. Just 3 years ago in 2022, we had our integrated resource plan case with Georgia Power. They came in, gave us their forecast, and they said they needed 400 new megawatts of generation over the next 7 years, which is fairly typical. Then just 1 year later in 2023, they came back, they filed an amended integrated resource plan and said they needed 6,600 megawatts over the next 7 years. That's 15 times more than they had told us just the year before. And this was primarily associated with new data centers expressing interest coming to Georgia. Since then, beginning of this year, Georgia Power updated that in our current integrated resource plan that we finished earlier this year. And now they said they needed 9,900 megawatts, primarily, again, associated with data centers. To put this in perspective, Georgia's current peak load is 16,200 megawatts with 4,000 megawatts of reserve energy. Adding 9,900 new megawatts over the next several years would be over a 50% increase in the total energy output for Georgia. The two nuclear reactors at Plant Vogtle produce 2,200 megawatts. Under the Territorial Act, a customer is considered large if they're 0.9 megawatts. And the typical data centers we're seeing expressing interest and we're actually coming to Georgia are routinely over 100 megawatts, and some of them are over 1,000 megawatts. Until just a few years ago, the largest customer Georgia Power had ever had, they had one customer that exceeded 100 megawatts. So it's a huge, dramatic change in what the commission is seeing. And this, we wanted to update the legislature on this because this potentially will have a big increase on our workload as well, because when they build new generation, we're the ones who do construction monitoring to make sure that the costs stay reasonable and prudent, that the construction schedules are being implemented appropriately, et cetera. In 2025, the commission issued Georgia Power an order that allowed Georgia Power to propose building between 6,000 and 8,500 megawatts over the next several years. And the company right now is in hearings at the commission to substantiate what it wants to propose building. Bids have been received to build new generation. And as I said, we're midway through a hearing to decide what the commission wants to certify as far as new generation over the next 5 years in Georgia. In 2023 and 2024, the company received 4,400 megawatts in new contracts from large load customers, primarily data centers. In April of 2025, earlier this year, the commission changed the rules that Georgia Power uses to sign up these new very, very large customers. And to date, under those new rules, the company has executed contracts for another 1,900 megawatts with primarily data centers. The commission will continue to review all the new contracts that Georgia Power comes forward with for these data centers. And, it's our job to certify capacity needed to meet this new demand. To produce this new energy, if you were to certify, 9,000 new megawatts of generation, that would require $20 billion in new generation, probably another $10 billion in the transmission facilities needed to get that generation where it's supposed to go. As I mentioned, the commission's job is to look at these plans, make sure that's a reasonable level of investment. And then as those projects are actually built, make sure that they are being built prudently and, staying within approved cost budgets and that type of thing. In addition, part of the company's proposal currently before the commission is to build 5 new combined cycle plants in Georgia and another 20 energy generation facilities such as battery storage systems and purchase power agreements and things like that. So anyway, that's a brief overview. Like I said, we're currently doing the hearings. It'll be late December before the commission issues its decision in this case to decide exactly how many plants new Georgia Power will be certified to build, and the total cost and those things.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for being here today. Along those lines, you mentioned the additional workload that would come with building the additional generation of power. And I know it's early to say, and it may depend on what capacity is built. What additional resources would the commission need at that point to oversee those projects?
Yeah, and that's, we don't have a number right now simply because we're midway through the case, don't know what the commission will actually certify. When Georgia Power builds a large infrastructure facility like a combined cycle plant, they're currently building, 2 right now. We have staff members that work with construction monitoring. So they keep up with, is the company meeting the metrics of the project? How is the schedule going? Is the company spending its contingency appropriately? Reviewing, they told us it was going to be, this estimate of man hours. Are they meeting that? So it can be a labor intensive project. The commission did that with Plant Vogel and ended up disallowing $5 billion from what the company actually spent on the project. So, the investment is typically well worth it because, it keeps an eye on what's actually transpiring on the site. What the commission would need would depend on exactly what the commission ends up certifying, and we don't know yet.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from members of the committee? Mr. McAllister, I've got one question as it pertains to some of the additional funding that we included in the budget. In particular for the pipeline safety, has that brought Georgia into compliance with federal regulations, or is it improving that compliance?
It's improving. We have an audit every year where they come in, and this year we were I wouldn't want to say we weren't docked points that cost us reimbursement. It is we do get scored on the audit, but they would like us to continue to increase based on the increasing size of Georgia, the amount of pipes we have, they want us to increase our inspectors, and that may be something the chairman wants us to come forward and look at, but that is something that was in their audit this year. Yeah.
Is it the anticipation that one additional inspector, which would bring you back to the original request of two, help with that compliance?
The one you gave us last year in FY 26, yes, sir. That's one above what we had before.
Right.
So, and these are, when you train them, it takes 3 to 5 years to get them totally trained.
Right.
And then before they can do every inspection they're required. So there's a learning curve as well with that.
Okay.
So.
All righty. Thank you, sir. Thank
Yes,
you
sir.
for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for the update from, and just remind the chairman that Seattle's a long way from Lakeland and he needs to find his way home. But, thank you for being here today. Thank you for the agencies, for your participation and your updates, and members of the committee. Thank you for being here on a chilly Monday morning in Atlanta. Appreciate the, participation. Any other comments, questions, anything? With this, we stand adjourned. Thank you.